Okay, guys, what's up? Tomorrow, I will probably record a video at this time tomorrow, but I'll probably not insist that people need to come. You can come if you want to, but I'll just kind of record it as though I'm kind of like talking to myself, doing like a normal e-learning video. And I'll do a quick brush up on passive voice, like a little more practice with that. But we're checking the homework now, so hopefully y'all understood that it's due today. And I guess if you're watching this video and do it, you're kind of like now getting the answers, but make sure you're actually understanding them too. But yeah, tomorrow I will record myself at this time. You don't really have to come. You can if you want to. And then I won't release any video or stream on Friday. I will just send out a Google Forms quiz on the vocab, just the vocab for chapter 18. And I know it's confusing today. Y'all saw like 2 assignments get posted. Just look for the ones that say 9B only, since y'all are accelerated, but I don't feel like making a whole new class in Teams. But yeah, like if it doesn't say 9B only, ignore it and just do the 9B ones. So that is what we're checking right now. Okay, so we have passive voice. Y'all got put on quarantine right when we got something that's actually pretty tricky, but it's cool. So we have these new endings: are, restore, more, many, and tour. So it takes a second for those to click. But you translate passive verbs like instead of I actively verb, it's I am verbed. You are verbed, it is verbed, etc. So you've got to bust out the helping verb that is appropriate and then use the verbed version of the verb to make it successfully passive. And don't forget relative clauses, that's still a thing. That's chapter 17 vocab, so we're past that. But I will pick like a few of these words, but mostly chapter 18 on the quiz on Friday. So again, the quiz on Friday, it is mostly chapter 18 words like these with a few of these sprinkled in. I'll probably put the verbs. I'll just tell y'all some of the middle words and a couple of the verbs I will put. So study both of those, and I'll make that clear tomorrow. Okay, and then we do have imperfect and future tense passive verbs, but they're actually pretty easy to spot. We have passive infinitives, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so multi, morta, etiam, facili, rather, nimis, terentur. I know this makes it a little smaller on our screen, but I'm probably going to keep it like this and not full screen so I can like point at things better. I don't know. I bet y'all don't have your mics on, but does anybody want to share? I'll just ask just in case. That's fine. Multi, morta, etiam, facili, nimis, terentur is going to be like many. Many should probably be our subject. That's what we should assume. It doesn't go with death. Death is ablative for some reason, and we don't know why yet. But just many, I can skip everything, and my verb is terentur. So if it was many terrent, that would just be like many actively terrify, or many are actively terrifying a direct object. But since it's terentur, that is passive. So it's going to be not many actively scare or terrify something, but many.
Mr. Calinello, do you want us to turn in the homework? Like, do you want us to like send it to you, or do you want us to like, or do you want us to like show it to you right now?
No, not right now. Always try to just use the actual assignment itself on Teams. When I open y'all can see this, right? Y'all can see my Teams. It's not invisible to you, because it's invisible when you stream from Teams. But yeah, try to submit it through the assignment itself, which I know it looks different for y'all. But if you have trouble with that, then that's when you should chat it to me. But otherwise, try to like, I don't know what it looks like when you go into an assignment. This is just like when y'all turn it in. But yeah, try to turn it in this way, submit like a screenshot of the actual homework. But if you have trouble with that, that's when you should just chat it to me, okay? Because I'm fine with people chatting me things. It's just that sometimes I lose, or like I can't keep track of if a person's chatted to me or not. But if all else fails, just chat or email it, either way. But anyway, okay, so it's passive. So many are terrified, okay? That is the big thing. And that might sound really, and it's not just terrified. Nimis, it's kind of this adverb that it means too or too much. So like many are too terrified. By even easy death. This is not the best sentence, but this is a concept we should know now, that before passive voice, when something was ablative and didn't have a preposition, we would use with to translate it. Ablative of means, right? Like with death. But now that verbs can be passive, if you see an ablative that doesn't have a preposition, you're going to use by. Because think about it, now that we have these passive verbs, the verb is happening to the subject. right? Like with the active verbs, the subject is doing a verb to a direct object. But now, since the verb is happening to the subject, if you want to express like who's actually doing the action, since it is in the subject, you use the ablative of means or something called the ablative of agent, which we'll probably see in a second. And so if Achille doesn't look like it, but it's going with more to, it is a third declension adjective ablative ending, where this is, most of the third declension nouns still get an E for their ablative and not a long I, but I know that's very confusing. So this is not a great sentence, but the important part is just the multi-terentur part. And it might sound weird, but a lot of people, like, their minds are blown by trying to translate something as passive. You just got to make sure it sounds like it's happening to the subject, in this case, many. So if you said, like, many are too terrifying, that wouldn't be good. If you said many terrified, that's still active. You got to have that helping verb and what is essentially kind of like the past tense version of the verb. That is what makes it happen to the subject. Okay. I guess I put this slide here just to be like, yeah, if Achilles is a third declension adjective and they get I's in their ablative and dative, not just dative, like third declension nouns. Okay. Beata memoria amicitiarum docium numquam delebitur. Stop me if y'all have questions, please, honestly. But beatus is an adjective no one likes to remember. It just means happy. So it's the happy memory of sweet friendship. That's amicitiarum docium. Those are the first four words. And then our verb is delebitur. So it's not that the happy memory of sweet friendship will actively destroy something. That would be weird sounding if a memory is destroying something. So delebitur is not only passive because it's got the TUR, but it is future because it's got the BI. So again, like if we just took off the UR, it would be happy memories will actively destroy something. But when we add the UR and it's passive, it's they will be destroyed, okay? And numquam is never, so it's they will never be destroyed, okay? This is a real Barney the dinosaur kind of sentence. It's not about anything actually destroying something. But yeah, you want to make sure you know how to make it sound passive. And for future tense, you just got to bust out will and be. And in this case, it's like never goes between those two helping verbs. But generally for the future tense passive, it's just will be verbed. Present tense is am, is, or are verbed. Imperfect is was or were verbed. So yeah, third singular, passive voice, future tense. So we know about person number and tense. But when we're talking about passive versus active, that is this new parameter called the voice of a verb. Here, the voice is passive. If I'm asking about the voice of a verb, it's almost certainly passive. I just like wouldn't really ask about the voice of an active verb. All of our verbs up to this point have been active. Okay, that woman, but it's that blind woman. Something about all types. Genus generis is a new word. I think it's new, right? That means type or kind or sort. But that looks like maybe that's a direct object, all types. So let me just keep moving and find a verb. Okay, intellexit is a verb. So that blind woman understood, and that is perfect tense. So we could also say has understood, but understood is fine. Okay, the X shows up when it is perfect tense. Understood all types of art. All right. So the first three words were noun phrase for my subject. The next two words were the direct object. There's a possessive going with them. Ars artis is third declension for art, and that is that nasty third declension genitive plural. It's usually just um for a lot of words, but it's ium for some of them. Coque means also. So I guess we can kind of put also wherever, like also understood, all types of art. And what's our next verb? Laudabatur. So we know lauda laudare means to praise, but this is not they praised. If it was just laudabat, that would be praised, like though that blind woman praised. But it's laudabatur, so it's passive. So how do we make the praise happen to her? And it's also past tense passive, like imperfect passive. That's what the BA is doing. So it's that she was praised. For present passive, you got to use am, is, or are, depending. But for imperfect, it's was or were verbed. So was always semper praised ob amicis iucundis by a sweet friend. Do I say it here? No. So, like I said, often with these passive sentences, you will have an ablative of either means or agent, and you translate it with by. Like ab has been from for us previously, but ab plus a passive verb equals by. Or ablative of means plus a passive verb is not going to be with, but it's going to be by plus the ablative. So yeah, I mean, if you just think about it, it's like the verb is happening to the subject. So it's like, but who's actually doing the verb? And you would communicate that with this preposition by plus whatever the thing that is doing the verb is. Sorry, my grammar starts to fall apart at this part of the day. So yeah, but that's what amikis eu cantis is, this ablative agent, praised by the sweet friends. Okay. I mean, like, praised from the sweet friends wouldn't even make sense anyway. But ab will still mean from when it's with a active verb. But a couple things just like function differently when the verb is passive. Okay, what is it? Last one or second to last one? So is this one I don't like? No, this one's okay. So your Vester, old Senex dad, your old dad. And then I see a quote. I could just be like, well, this is a relative clause. Let me come back to it. That'd be fine. But how about I just take care of it right now? Your old dad. So this would be from whom. But if I look ahead and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a passive verb inside of my relative clause. So it's by whom. Because like of what I was just talking about, where or ob is going to mean by with a passive verb. By whom? We. Okay, this is not mus, but it is still first plural. It's mur, so it's we. It's first person plural, but it's passive. By whom we were, because the ba, and then this verb just means to help. So I think we don't see it too much. It's a nasty verb. I don't like it. I don't like pronouncing it, but that's what it means. So it's your old dad, by whom we were often helped, is the actual relative clause here. So we got passive voice verbs and relative clauses, and sometimes the two shall meet. Kind of crazy. What about this person? So like, let's get on with the main clause. Something about much, but let me like find what is the actual verb of the main clause. They're back here. So koipit dikara. We got koipi koipisa in chapter 17. It means began. It's stuck in the perfect system. It can't be present tense. So anyway, your old dad began to say, diko dikaras, to speak or say, like dictate. Yesterday began to say, and then let me go back up where I left off. Multa, he began to say much. Multa can be our direct object. Began to say much day about Caleribus Periculus, the swift dangers, and Gentis Maris. Those look to be genitive. So all of the huge ocean. So there's kind of, where's the, geez, look, I have like 7 slides for that one sentence. So there's kind of a lot going on here. And again, I like underlining my relative clauses. I think would be good for y'all. I assume these commas are actually in the textbook, but like, just imagine if the comma wasn't there. It would be so overwhelming to separate this relative. Like, yeah, because you don't want to think that this is the verb of the main clause. It's not. It's the verb of the relative clause. The verb of the main clause is koipit dikara, began to speak. So even though I did the relative clause right off the bat, I still think y'all should translate your main clauses and then do your relative clauses last. And relative clauses usually start with qui qua quad unless there's a preposition that the relative clause qui qua quad is a object of, in which case it starts with said relative clause. Am I recording? That should be. Okay, one more, right? One more. Induced. Just because no one, you can use your mic if you want. To ask a question. Something about the minds. Could it be our minds? I think it is our minds. So yeah, Noster means our. And I guess mens mentis, this word that means mind, it must be a feminine word because its adjective buddy has a feminine looking ending. So news to me. I don't know the gender of every third declension noun, but that kind of tells us. So our mind, something about memory, but not right now. Something about powerful memory, but let me get to it later. Of those two something deeds. Keto means quickly, moventor. Okay. So this is the thing I actually need to look at right now. So it's our minds not actively move. That's what it would be if it was movent. It would just be like our minds move, but it's our new passive ending. So it's not our minds are actively moving or actively move, but it's that our minds are moved. Okay. That might seem really simple. You might be like, what's the big deal? Like passive voice is easy. And maybe it's different depending on your age, but trust me, guys, even 8th graders I've taught, they take like weeks to get comfortable with translating passive verbs like this. Yeah. I think it feels like you're like following these rules, but if you just like understand the concept of what passive voice is, you just got to figure out a way to express that the verb is happening to the subject. So it's not like the minds are doing something; it's that something's happening to the minds, since that is the subject. But anyway, our minds are moved, and then I'm like, well, so what do we do with memoria? It's ablative. It's got the macron over the a, but I don't see any prepositions. So normally we would use with. We'd say like with the memory, ablative means. But ablative means when the verb is passive, we need to use by. So our minds are moved by the powerful memory of those two deeds. What was it like on Tuesday? Like no one knew factum, but it means deed. And I don't know. Let's color code the Latin. Do I do that on the next? No, I don't. So yeah, illorum, duorum, factorum. Hopefully you can just kind of very visually see that those are all genitive, possessive of this ablative of means, which I should label. Yeah. So when your verb is passive, which they will be for the next couple of chapters, we're just gonna like constantly be seeing passive verbs, and it'll be rare now to see active ones, at least but it'll go back to normal soon. But just know that you should be looking for things that you would use a preposition by with. And by things, I mean ablative of means is or ablatives of agents. So that you can say, this subject was verbed by so-and-so, and so-and-so is going to be ablative. All right, any questions, guys? The 7 of you that showed up are really cool, and y'all straight up deserve that sweet bonus participation point. Person and show letters and numbers. You can tell me your name or Draco too if y'all want bonus. But if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. So again, one more time, I will probably record a video at this time tomorrow, but you can come if you want. It's up to you, but it'll be posted like before 3 o'clock, and it'll just be like a 10-minute thing of me doing a little bit of practice. And then I will post your test on Friday morning. It's chapter 17 and 18 vocab. What was that?
Sure. So does the ablative of means typically only occur in the middle of the sentence, or does it, like, I must have missed something because I guess I wasn't here for whenever you were giving that excerpt. Like, could you just
Sure. No, that's a good question. So I did realize I don't think I record, like I probably need to start recording all of the 9B classes since we're moving faster than 1.5. Okay, so this is probably weird to kids like you, Michael, who have been online for a while, is that I started moving the 9B class a little faster, but I was going to let online kids stay at the pace of the 7th and 8th grade just because it felt a little too complicated for me to start accelerating the e-learners. So we're on chapter 18, and I didn't record Monday's class where they got the chapter 18 notes. So you need to kind of look. Maybe that's what I'll do tomorrow. I'll like re-present the chapter 18 notes because this new thing, passive voice, is very new. But to actually answer your question, ablatives can show up wherever. And what we're supposed to do is be like, oh, like this word has a macron over the A, it's first declension, so it is ablative. And then realize that it's weird that there's no preposition, right? That happened before chapter 18, and we would use with an ablative like that, usually, because it was an ablative of means. But now the thing that happens with these new passive verbs that I'll explain in more detail tomorrow is that we want to use the preposition by. But yeah, they can show up in any part of the sentence, but the red flag moment happens for us when we don't see something like cum or day or x or sub next to it. And we're like, what do? We don't have a preposition. So with or by are kind of like default prepositions in Latin that, like, if you don't have any other preposition, use with if the verb is active, and use by when it's passive. And again, if you're like, okay, that's cool, Mr. Kellum, but I don't know what passive verbs are, that's what I'll do on Monday. So yeah. And I'll be lenient for kids who have been on e-learning. I'll work with you because, like, say, Michael, if you did the chapter 17 homework, that's fine. That's fine. But if you were in my class on Monday, then you should be doing the chapter 18 homework. Anything else, Michael? Does that kind of clear that up?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, I know that's kind of confusing. And so after, because y'all come back on Wednesday, at that point, I'll probably let e-learners go back to just being at the slightly slower 7th and 8th grade pace, by the way. But I mean, they're going to be on chapter 18 next week too. So it's not like this is like much faster. But anyway, guys, I might see some of y'all tomorrow if you're like really lost about passive voice, and you should show up. But otherwise, I will record myself solo and upload it by like 2:30ish. And if you're like Michael and you've been on e-learning for a while, you can probably stay on the slightly slower track. And or just know that I might grade you a little more leniently. Anyway, guys, have a good rest of your the evening, and good luck with this next little tiny bit of e-learning y'all have to do until Tuesday, I guess. All right, goodbye. Bye.